Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Mist podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the traditional English football curtain raiser, the Community Shield match tomorrow evening at Wembley Stadium in the heart of London. Although I say that it's actually like a 45-minute journey from actual central London to Wembley, so I don't know why it's the heart of London, but there you go. Nevertheless, it is a game that either gives you a trophy at the end of it or is a glorified friendly, depending on the final result. And it will be played out between Arsenal and the defending FA Cup champions. I don't know why I said and. It is Arsenal. And Liverpool, who are the defending Premier League champions. And joining me today on the podcast to discuss the game as well as a few things, Arsenal Football Club, as my first guest. He is a classmate of mine, a friend of mine, and an ardent Arsenal fan, Dr. Sean Sarao. How are you doing today?
I'm good, bro. How are you? What are you up
Yeah,
to?
man.
How are you doing?
I'm good, dude. I don't know. Where do we start? Last season, Arsenal, disappointing one in terms of the Premier League, obviously.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I don't think we need to elaborate too much on that. But it's kind of understandable because going from an old one manager to another, basically, that's always going to be a troubling season. Whether it's an established manager or not, and we can get into all of that. But the thing is, going from one manager to another is obviously going to be a disturbing season. And last season, obviously for Arsenal, didn't end too well in the Premier League. But Unai Emery to Mikel Arteta. Talk to me. What was your initial reaction to Arteta being appointed, or Emery being sacked, and then how you saw Arsenal? Because obviously, I've seen a fair bit of Arsenal, but I haven't seen as much Arsenal as an Arsenal fan. Let's say, how did you see the transition from Unai Emery to Mikel Arteta?
So basically, the main reason why Unai Emery was bought was probably because of his tactical perspective of the game. Uh, so the thing with when Wenger came in was Wenger's tactics revolved around a lot of freedom to players whom he thought could do a lot with that freedom in the game. So, for example, if you see Henry, if you see Sanchez, if you see Ozil, these are the sort of players who had freedom. So once Emery came, he had a very fixed tactical perspective of the game. And in the first season, he did really well. Definitely, he did really well. I think his tactics were mostly to do with 4-2-3-1. Although he once in a while changed the, he used three centre backs at the back. But his mostly was got to do with 4-2-3-1 with fullbacks pushing all the way up with pressurizing. But if you see last season, with the centre backs that we had and with his tactics, what happens is we used to get caught in between the fullbacks and the centre backs because of how high the fullbacks used to push up. And his game mostly revolved around the wingers sticking to the wing and not coming inside, and the fullbacks overlapping them. Uh, so that is one aspect of it. So mainly what happened to Emery last season was that firstly, he didn't have a fixed 11. If you look at all the top teams, most of the teams have a fixed 11. Secondly, we didn't have a fixed formation. You look at the top teams, most of the teams generally have a fixed formation. Emery kept switching between three at the back. And no, last year I think he stuck to four at the back, but then it kept switching in between. You'd keep a 4-2-3-1, or you'd keep a diamond, or it shifted. Thirdly, we have two top strikers, Lacazette and Aubameyang. He would rotate them rather than use them together, because if you see the previous season, definitely they had a much more connection. I mean, if you see their game, there was some sort of synergy when they played. They always had that sort of game between them, which they could. He didn't really build up on that. And fourth, another thing with Unai Emery was that the the attackers were very lethargic under Unai Emery, and not like if you compare with Arteta's game. If you see how the attack proceeded, they were very lethargic. I feel that Unai Emery had to be sacked earlier than when he was sacked. It took long time for the board to get sacked. I don't know, because if they were waiting for the results to change, or they were searching for someone right to take the team forward. I don't know what took them so long, but the sack was impending definitely, and they left it till the last minute to get sacked, which is like quite poor from the part of the board. Like, no disrespect to Unai Emery, he did well, but I think he could have done better given the signings that we had,
Mm.
definitely. But also, things didn't work out very well for Unai Emery as well because his game revolved around a lot with the fullbacks pushing up. His game revolved around a lot with the wingers, mostly his wing gameplay, like the gameplay
Yeah,
generally
yeah.
on the wings and the ball coming inside, correct? So what happens
Mm.
is when the fullbacks go up, the fullbacks of the opponent team have to come to cover these guys, which allows the central players to push in through the gap in the middle.
Mm. Yeah.
But he didn't really have Bellerin or Tierney to start with because both of them were injured, and he had to settle for, I think, Chambers and
Mm.
Socrates and David Luiz.
And Kolasinac, there was
Kolasinac
another.
as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, Kolasinac, and that was one of the main reasons why Kolasinac was bought as well because of his attacking
Yeah.
abilities.
I
Yeah,
remember because Liverpool was linked for him, and this was, I think, around the time we bought Andy Robertson, if I'm not wrong. So the fact that Liverpool was also looking at a similar profile of player, so you
yeah,
know that he is an attacking fullback, and
attacking.
obviously having watched him at Schalke also, you knew he was that sort of a player. But
Definitely, he was one of
yeah,
Schalke's top defenders as well. The season
hmm,
that he left, he did really well in Schalke.
yeah. So consistency was the problem with Emery.
Yep.
You've mentioned change of formations, players not playing together, best
Yeah.
players not being on the pitch at the same time.
Yeah.
So all these have been issues with Emery.
Yeah.
How did that all change with Arteta? Because initially, and when Arteta was appointed, I said, okay, this was my reaction. I'm interested to know yours as well. But my reaction was, yes, Arteta's been trained by Pep. So the philosophy that I can see Arsenal playing, over the course of the next few months would be similar to what City do at the Etihad Stadium. So my thing was, he's inexperienced, yes, but he could be something good. So is that something that you've seen? And my initial reaction was, he's inexperienced and people are like, oh, Arsenal is a big club. And it is, there's no question.
Yeah.
Arsenal should appoint someone with more experience. And I remember Allegri was linked to the Arsenal job at that point.
Yeah.
So given a choice, I think at the time I would say I would have gone for Allegri. But over time, I'm kind of glad to say Arteta's kind of proved me wrong as well. So what have you seen from Arteta's Arsenal? That's kind of my question.
So the thing was, from Wenger to Unai Emery to Arteta, we went from an Arsenal man to an outside person. And so the one of the main reasons for bringing in Arteta was to have that club mentality. You see how Barcelona selects a few coaches. It is mostly to do with players who have either played for that club or players who have been brought up in that club. It's like that. So it is to bring about that club mentality in them. So Arteta has been a huge fan favorite of Arsenal.
Yeah.
I honestly wasn't expecting Arteta to come. I definitely was. See, at one point we were linked to Mourinho. Our situation was so bad that I was like, okay, at least Mourinho will be coming. But then I was like, what is wrong with me? What am I saying? So basically, I was like, oh crap, we'll be going for Mourinho. I really don't want. I wanted to go for Mourinho, and at the same time, I didn't want to go for Mourinho because of what a big of an ass he was to Wenger and how much he looked down upon Arsenal. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, fine. The other choices that were there, I think at that time were Allegri. I think that was around the time where Tottenham were having problems with Pochettino.
Yeah.
And Pochettino was outrightly was like, there's no way I'm going to Arsenal. We were also linked to Nuno Espirito.
Yeah.
Yeah. So him, I wouldn't mind actually because he was doing a really good job at Wolves. And he also, given how the season was going for him, I'd understand if he wouldn't want to leave Wolves. And definitely they ended up on a higher note.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only person, when Josh Kroenke came out with a statement saying that we are going to, get a coach who sort of resembles the club mentality and the club values, it was pretty evident that we were going for Arteta. So
Hmm.
now the only solace at that point was that Arteta worked under Guardiola, and Guardiola heavily depended on Arteta as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, because you could see that on the pitch side, you knew it from various reports that we heard. He heavily depended on a lot on Arteta, especially for the homework that he used to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was mainly the reason why Arteta was chosen. And Arteta, when he came in, he even when he was at the club as a player, he was one of the most disciplined players.
Hmm.
He was a very non-bullshit player.
Yeah.
He stuck to the game. He did things as things were meant to be done. There was no doing more or doing less of it.
Yeah.
And he took up captaincy within 2 seasons of coming to Arsenal.
Yeah, I
Says
remember
a
that.
lot
Yeah.
about the player. So when Arteta came in, he brought about a lot of changes in the club. The first thing that he came in and he said was that things have to change in this club.
Hmm.
Which and I don't think the players bought it at that point. They would have been like, who's this new guy's coming in and telling us to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely see that in players like Pepe. You could see that in players like Ozil. You could see that in players like Guendouzi. Yeah, because they were slacking when Arteta had come in. So he brought in a lot of changes. If you look at Arteta's routine, also is insane. So the minute he came, he introduced himself to everyone in the club. Even though, despite of knowing the people at the club, he was very stern about the changes that he wants to bring about in the club, starting from his assistants up to the chef, and also the dressing room facilities and all sorts of that. If you look at his daily routine, he would come at the club at around 7:30 in the morning. Everyone, along with the assistant coaches, the fitness people, the doctors, they'd have breakfast together and they would go through the routine of that day or what was decided that day. Following that, the players would have a meeting with Arteta where certain clips will be shown, or they would go through the schedule for that day and what is to be practiced. So first, initially, it'd be with the entire gang, and then with like a small few group of players that he wants to concentrate upon. So players is to come in at 9:45, whereas this guy is to come in at 7:30. And once the players left, uh, Arteta and the rest of his backroom staff would still stay behind and decide for the next day and prep for the next day. So you know that he was really focused to take the club somewhere when he came in.
Yeah.
And definitely there was no change that was seen immediately in the first 4 to 5 games. We drew 2 games, we lost 1 game. Yeah. So it took a while to see a change in his system. But then once we started getting a little more established, so things like Pepe and Ozil were out of the team until they showed that they want to play in the team. You could
Yeah.
say that he was very, very uh, clear about the fact that he wanted the same sort of commitment from every player. He brought about a change with respect to the attitudes and behaviors of the players. You could see that with Guendouzi. They had something to do with his behavior when they went to Dubai. Again, when the game against Brighton Hove Albion, where he held one of the players by the neck.
Yeah. I think it was Mope, right?
Yeah, Mobe.
Yeah.
And he was dropped for that too. So, he was pretty clear about how he wants to bring about a change in the attitudes of the players as well. He wants a certain type of behavior as well. You could see the change in the game style, the behavior, and the approach to the game with respect to Xhaka.
Yeah.
Xhaka had a very bad time under Unai Emery.
Yeah, I think that was like for a while that became the main talking point. That whole armband, throwing the armband, and
I think sort of a defining moment for Arteta as well. And another defining moment for Arteta was the win against United.
Yeah.
So and
I think the thing is, and so a couple of things. You said Arteta wanted to bring his own stuff, and I couldn't like help but sort of compare to Liverpool, because when Klopp joined, he wanted a couple of people with him, and he was very specific that he would not take up the job without. And I'm sure Guardiola did the same thing when he went to City. So I think so that's one thing. You need people whom you can trust.
Yeah.
With you, and introducing yourself to the entire club. I think that's very important. I know Klopp's done it at Liverpool. I know Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did it at Man United, and I think Guardiola also did it at City. I think that's very important because it shows that, for 11, I think it shows the players also that that they are just as important as the canteen lady, for example.
Yeah.
And I'll always like phrase this to Klopp. Klopp had this sort of thing where he said, all these people, all these staff, there's 40, 50 odd people who are working here. They're working here so that 11 of you on the pitch go and do your best every week.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important for the players as well to know that, they have a sense of responsibility to the people who are not on the pitch playing in Arsenal colours, but would love to do so if they could.
Yeah, definitely.
And like you said, slow start, 4-5 games, there's a couple of draws, losses, and people are like, is he too inexperienced? Is he this? Is he that? But I think they did give him time. One, because he was an Arsenal legend. And the other thing is because he is a new manager, and new managers do take time. You don't start, Solskjaer is an exception, but you don't start winning 10 games in a row. The season didn't go particularly according to plan till that point. But once the COVID break happened, Arteta had time to interact with his players, and then the restart happened. I think you saw more of what Arteta was about. And obviously the end to the season, you beat Liverpool, which I am not salty about at all. And then you had the win against Man City in the FA Cup semis.
Yep.
And then the ending the season with the trophy. And even though you finished below Tottenham, you still had a better season than Tottenham. So
yeah.
Which is like the weirdest thing for me, because every year you're like, yeah, this year Tottenham was like, Arsenal's got the worst season possible. And I know a Tottenham fan over here, so he's like, Arsenal's, this was before the FA Cup final. Because like, Arsenal's had the worst season possible. Chelsea's going to smash them. I can see like Pulisic scoring 2, Tammy Abraham scoring 1, this, that. And then Arsenal come out 2-1 wins, and I can't see this guy for like weeks. But yeah, the point is Arsenal at the end, like you could see what Arteta was about. And going into the new season, so before I sort of go into the new season, one of the things that happens in a team which doesn't have a good season is younger players get a lot of chances because, managers are trying anything that they can to try and win. Correct. So couple of things. I think the 2 players that I personally was most impressed by was Bukayo Saka.
Definitely.
I think he was the best youth player for Arsenal that last season.
Yeah.
And then Joe Willock. Now, Joe Willock obviously featured a lot in the start.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I think he sort of tailed off a little bit after Arteta. But I don't know, have I missed out on anyone? Or obviously those are the 2.
These are definitely the top 2 youth players. Saka for sure, because he's been so effective. He was deployed as either a wing or a wing back. Like you wouldn't expect a player of like a winger to play as a defender as well. But one of the main reasons why he was deployed as that was so that, he gives Aubameyang that sort of freedom to run into spaces so that he could overlap him and give him that, put in those crosses for the players.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for him, it was Katie who would play in that role. Yeah. So Saka has been amazing. He's been assisting. He's been scoring. And for a person whose first season, like a first full season that is playing for the first team, he's been like really, really.
Yeah, he's definitely been a revelation. There was even talk that he might get an England call up. Didn't happen. He's still playing for the under-21s this time. But I don't think it's that far away if he keeps this level of form up. Obviously, it's difficult to get in as a left back, I think, in the England squad because I think Chilwell is kind of nailed. He's kind of nailed that. But I think the backup spot to Chilwell is still kind of up in the air. So
But I
You know,
think he deserves more of a winger sort of a role rather than a
I think
left back.
that's much harder for someone to get into an England team, because I think wings is one of the places where England's really good if you look at it. You know, you've got
Because they haven't
Rashford.
been crossing all these years.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, you've got what Sterling plays on the left, Rashford. I
Yeah.
mean, Sterling plays on the right, Rashford plays on the left, and then you've got Sancho. Hudson-Odoi hasn't played much for Chelsea, but he's still
Yeah.
sort of considered there. And you've got all these guys like Madison, Grealish, all of whom can play on the wings. They're mainly
Wings.
central players, but they can play on the wings. So, I mean, but he's made a lot of steps. Bukayo Saka has made a lot of steps. Joe Willock, on the other hand, initially was really good. I watched him play live in, I think, your opening game of the season.
Newcastle.
It's in James's Park.
Yeah.
And he was really good there. And then, of course, there was that, I think, the 5-all game at Anfield was the Carabao.
That goal was
That goal was
that
just
long
brilliant.
range.
Yeah, I mean, no matter like even if you're like supporting Liverpool, that you have to be like, okay, that goal is just really good. Like at the time, I'm just pissed off. I'm like, I mean, he hits that like 9 times out of 10 that doesn't go in, but that goal was just brilliant. But yeah, so I mean, he's kind of tailed off a little bit, but I think those are the two players that I've kind of been most impressed by. But going into this season now, you've ended the season on a high, playing the Community Shield.
Yeah.
You've got 2 new signings, although one of them is still officially to be confirmed by the club. But it's kind of, he's, as far as I know, I think he's quarantining in England right now before the signing is announced. Yeah, so it's just a matter of time. Like everything is done. It's just he has to get out of quarantine. That's it.
Yeah.
So Gabriel, that's the player. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his second name. So Gabriel's centre back from Lille, left-footed centre back. And then you've got William Saliba. And for me, if you ask me, I think Kieran Tierney is kind of like a new signing because he missed most of last season.
Most of the season, yeah. But
so
he ended the season on like a high note.
Like he was really good. He was very impressive.
Massive player he's been towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's capable of playing centre back also because he does it for Scotland actually. Because Robertson plays on the left at left back, so Tierney has to sort of fit in at centre back. So he's capable. Yeah, he's capable of that as well. So Tierney was really impressive. But going into the new season, one thing about Arsenal that I've noticed is you have a lot of centre backs, but they're either inexperienced or they're not really good because David Luiz and Mustafi aren't going to scare anyone. And Gabriel and Saliba, they haven't played a Premier League game yet. So what are your thoughts on the Arsenal team this season as a whole? Like from goalkeeper Bernd Leno all the way to Aubameyang, let's say.
It's not just... so goalkeeper, Arteta is going to have a tough choice selecting Bernd Leno and Martinez. Currently for the Community Shield game, I don't think Martinez will be able to make it because it's quarantine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think he ends quarantine today. So he hasn't been there for preseason or something like that.
Yeah, so it'll definitely be Leno who will be starting. But for league purposes, Arteta is going to have a tough job. And Godspeed to him about who is going to choose because it's going to be so difficult. Like once Leno left, Martinez had a first team call-up. And he's been so consistent in every game that he has played in. And I'm quite surprised to see that how have we not given him a chance in the last 10 years?
That's true. He's been there for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and every time he's been there, he's been on loan. So it's like quite sad that, I mean, it's good for him. Like he performed really well. Now people are aware of, how good he can be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good thing because you don't want a drop off in quality, like from your first choice to your second choice keeper.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still think Leno will be first choice, at least to like start the season. Maybe like for the first 6 or 7 games, I think Leno will still be first choice. If the form is really bad, which to be honest, I can't actually see Leno dropping off in form that much.
True.
I think then Martinez might get a look in. And I think Martinez right now will definitely get a chance at the Cups.
It could also be the way how Ospina and... not Ospina, sorry, Cech and this one were there. So Cech,
I think it was Ospina.
Cech is to play the main games and the Champions League games and the League Cup games. Ospina used to play.
Yeah.
So even that is not bad either. Plus, also when the games get a lot, like you said, having the League Cup and the FA Cup and Europa League and this one, as well as the Premier League. You'll have games every 3-4 days, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this definitely calls for, like a rotation in the keepers as well.
Yeah.
So that is going to be the keepers. Coming to the back line, who I think should be sold, Mustafi. Although his form has picked up till the FA Cup semi-final where he got injured, so he's out indefinitely.
Yeah.
With a thigh injury, but I still think he is capable of making silly errors. He gets carried away sometimes during the game.
Yeah. And David Luiz, everyone sort of knows David Luiz. So
yeah, everyone knows David Luiz. David Luiz, he'll do 10 good things in a game and he'll do one thing that can like ruin all the 10 good things that he and the rest of the team have done. But
That's
then
true.
Ever since that incident at City, he's picked up his game. He's gone forward with a no bullshit sort of defending.
Yeah.
So then we also have Chambers, who's injured with a knee injury, who's probably will be back at the end of the season, at the end of the year. But I think he should be sold because you don't have place for that one.
Yeah, I don't think he's good enough to play at Arsenal, to be honest.
Arsenal.
Yeah.
Then there's Rob Holding. Rob Holding can be that sort of a player who can play in cup games. Yeah, but I don't think he's still starting 11 quality. We have Saliba. We have Saliba is a right-footed player defender. Saliba, I watched a few training videos where Arteta is trying to get him try to inculcate the sort of game that Arteta wants to start from the back. If you look at Arsenal's game, the difference between Unai Emery and Arteta about starting from the back is that Unai Emery's game had a lot of sideward passes, and they would falter a lot under pressure.
Yeah.
Whereas Arteta's game, Arteta wants his defenders to play in such a way that one of the attacking opponents commits to them, puts pressure on them, and he wants them to play on during that pressure. I mean, he wants the opponent player to commit so that they'll be removing one person from the front, so that it can free flow from it. You can get a free flow after that. He wants He wants the attacking players of the opponent team to commit on our defenders so that he can move the game up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he moves the game forward. Like if you see, he wants Xhaka to drop back and then put in those passes, which was not being done under Unai Emery. It was more of sideways passes. Yeah. So we have Saliba. Then we have Gabriel. Even I cannot pronounce his last name.
Yeah. It's some Portuguese Brazilian stuff. So
he's gonna take time to definitely get into the main team. So we can't say for sure how good he's gonna be until we see him play. Then there's Pablo Mari as well, who's injured with the left.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about Pablo Mari.
Injury. Who I have seen him play for the under-23 once. He was okay. He reminds me a lot of Mertesacker, but a left-footed player. And also the sort of who's quite commanding from the back.
Yeah. I watched him play for Flamengo because like one of my friends is a Flamengo fan. So sometimes so when I used to go to his house, he would be watching a Flamengo game and I've watched him play. And obviously the Club World Cup, he did play there. So he was good. Like when Arsenal bought him on loan, I was like, this is a good edit. Like it is better than what Arsenal have so far.
Yeah.
So he is a good player. Unfortunate with the injuries, but he is a good player.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait for him to return as well because it's indefinite again. So those are mostly the defenders that we have. With respect to the fullbacks, on the left side we have Kieran Tierney and Kolasinac.
Yeah.
I'd any day prefer Tierney over Kolasinac because Kolasinac doesn't really fall back that often. I understand that he's an attacking defender, but you expect him to fall back at the same time. Quite often during the game, you see Aubameyang or Saka cover up for him. Which I understand, like if it happens once in a while is quite understandable, but a lot throughout the game is
unacceptable. Yeah.
Beats the purpose. Yeah. That is on the left side, and Saka once in a while can start as a left back.
Yeah. And
then on the right side we have Bellerin and
there's Maitland-Niles.
Cedric Soares
also.
And Maitland-Niles as well. So,
but I think Maitland-Niles might leave. So I think it's just down to like Cedric versus.
There's a 15 million bid that got rejected. For Maitland-Niles. I think they want 30 million from Wolves for him, and I think he'd be a good addition to Wolves.
Yeah, especially considering they're going to lose Matt Doherty to Tottenham. So
Doherty as well, right?
Yeah, Doherty's he's going to Tottenham. I think that deal is pretty much confirmed. So,
but why would they buy Doherty? I don't understand. Don't they have? Oh, they have
Aurier. Aurier's. I think Aurier is going to go to Milan or something. So, or he's already gone, or he's going to go. One of the two. I'm not entirely sure of that. But yeah, so defense question marks now and then, and in terms of you don't know how Saliba is going to be. You don't know how Gabriel's going to be. Midfield, I think
Xhaka's role is quite determined. Arteta wants Xhaka to play. I'd love to have Ceballos back. He was tremendous toward the end of the season. He was definitely dropped by Arteta because according to Arteta, he wasn't putting in enough, but he showed that he can put in enough, and he got back into the side, and he has performed really, really well.
Yeah.
So then there's Torreira. Torreira was a really good addition in the first season of Unai Emery. He played him as, his best role is just in front of the defense. But I don't know in the second season why he was pushing Torreira so high up the pitch and expecting him to create. That is not who he is.
Yeah. I think it's that it's the same thing. It's similar to what happened to Kante at Chelsea.
Yeah, but
suddenly you're asked to play.
At least carry the ball through the defense. He can way through, which Torreira cannot. He's not as skillful of a player as Kante is. Kante is good with the ball at his feet. Torreira is the sort of player who takes the ball out of someone's feet and releases it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
That is Torreira. Then we have Guendouzi. Guendouzi has an opening to be either he's going to be sold, or according to Arteta, Guendouzi will be given another chance to show what sort of a player he is after he has been dropped. That is for the Community Shield probably.
Yeah.
But he'll definitely have to get his shit right. I think Guendouzi, the problem with Guendouzi is he seems to have taken it a little lightly, given how his role models are Lacazette and Aubameyang.
Okay.
I don't think, at Arsenal, if you see.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, there was that issue where they were inhaling laughing gas from balloons, right?
Yeah.
And Guendouzi was also, that's not the sort of attitude you'd want from a young player who's just joined a big club.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll end up being like Ravel Morrison at the end if he goes that way.
Yeah.
So there's Guendouzi as well. And I would love to watch ESR play in the team, Emil Smith.
Yeah, Emil Smith-Rowe. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good. He's sort of a similar player like Ramsey.
Yeah, I was going to say he actually reminds me a lot of Aaron Ramsey.
And he's quite good. I really hope to see him play this season. And we also have Willock. Willock is very good as a substitute. He's when you say fresh legs, he's the sort of a player who reminds you of fresh legs.
Yeah.
He's quite DIBS.
And I think he's quite direct also. Like he doesn't sort of play those cute 1-2s and things like that. Like Ceballos, for example, would do that. But I think this guy is just like, give me the ball. I'm going to run at this guy. I'm going to go past him. I'm going to play like a good pass and then expect a 1-2, maybe take a long shot. Something like that.
Exactly.
But he's a very direct. He kind of reminds me of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, actually.
And Diaby as well, with those getting those tackles. You remember the game at Newcastle where he gets pushed off the ball and then he runs back and slides and
yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Like proper goosebumps. Yeah. So I think that comprises of the midfield.
And up front, obviously, there's no question. Aubameyang. just about missed on the Golden Boot by 1 goal to Jamie Vardy.
But I think we're waiting.
I think it's encouraging that people above 30 are actually the top two. So it kind of doesn't make you feel so old. But yeah, I mean, just about missed out on the Golden Boot, tied with Danny Ings on 22 goals last year. And I think Aubameyang's going to start as many games as possible.
Possible, yeah, definitely.
Might get a rest now and then in the cups, maybe.
Exactly.
And I would be very surprised if Lacazette doesn't start. Nicolas Pepe, jury's still out on him. Honestly, I can't. He's shown these glimpses. Sorry?
He's had these moments. Consistent performance.
That's the thing. Like, you see one game. I think, I don't remember which team it was. You see one game and he's like, okay, that is the kind of player he could become.
Yeah.
And then you see the next game. You're like, this guy looks like Theo Walcott. Like, there's no... Yeah. And that's no disrespect to Theo Walcott, obviously, but that's just not on the same. Like, the drop-off in performance from one game to another.
Yeah.
It's just very inconsistent. And I think part of it can be, initially at least, it could be attributed to, okay, he's just adapting to the Premier League. But I think 20, 30 odd games, and if you're still putting in performances like that, it's a little bit worrying. Especially also, considering the amount that Arsenal paid for him.
Yeah, but also you have to give him the fact that he had to settle in with 3 different coaches. That is Unai Emery.
That's true. He had Freddie Ljungberg.
Yeah, Freddie Ljungberg and Arteta. Although the role that was expected to be played by him was a similar sort of a role.
Yeah, but I think with Arteta it changed a little bit. I think Arteta asks him to press more. So I think that's kind of different from the previous managers. But I think he'll be a good player. Whether he'll become a great Arsenal player is a question that he needs to answer. I think his second season will be a better indicator of whether he'll be, especially if Arteta gets like the consistent time that he needs with, like, the one full season that a manager needs.
Definitely, yeah. And then,
anyone else in the front three that I'm missing out? Because I know these 3 are definitely going to be there. I honestly, I think Ozil is to Arsenal what Gareth Bale is to Real Madrid. Like, they're just chilling out and earning.
Gareth Bale plays, man.
Yeah, that's true. But they're just basically chilling out. I don't know if you remember this, Gareth. I think this was the match that Real Madrid won the league title in.
Yeah.
He's just chilling. He's literally got like the Corona mask on his eyes, and he's just sleeping. Like, I mean, he's a legend. Wales, Golf, Madrid in that order. But Ozil. I mean, Ozil's a very. I think prime Ozil was on another planet. I think Real Madrid Ozil. I think the initial Arsenal seasons Ozil.
Yeah,
he was on another planet. But where I think it's more the modern game that has sort of passed him, in the sense of I think attacking players are asked to defend from the front. I mean.
Yeah, and he can't. He can't.
He doesn't do that. You look at all the teams that he's played, even Mourinho's teams. Mourinho doesn't press.
Yeah.
Wenger, initially at least when he came, Wenger's teams didn't press.
Yeah.
So I think, in a way, all the systems were designed to sort of carry him on defense because they knew what he could do when he got the ball.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's not the kind of player you need in the modern game, which is sad in a way because you know how talented Ozil is. But
that's not something that you can change at the age that he is.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
he's quite adamant not to leave Arsenal as well.
He's earning good money there. Like, if I was Ozil, if I was Gareth Bale, even I would be chilling. Like, honestly.
But dude, you want to play football, man.
You do. But I think there comes a point where you're like, okay, I just can't do this, and like I'm trying, but because I think there were a few games where I think Ozil genuinely tried. But I just don't think he was up to it for like the full 90 minutes.
Yeah, actually, when Arteta stepped in and he expected that sort of no player was that physically fit to play for Arteta's sort of a game. If you see, they were out by 70 minutes. And we'd concede a goal between 70 and 90 minutes. We'd play amazing till then. then he saw that, okay, he was quite realistic about the fact that, none of our players are as physically fit to perform that sort of a pressing game that he was expecting. And then he asked the players to drop a little back with respect to the pressing game.
That's true. Yeah. And so Ozil is, I don't know, he's like an outlier. I don't know how much of a role he'll play this season. I don't know what role he'll play this season. I can't really tell. So Ozil's kind of an outlier. But I think Arsenal, the best version, I think the best area, I think, is the front three. I think.
Oh, we forgot Gabriel as well.
Martinelli, of course. Yeah. Of course, yeah. He was a revelation last year.
Definitely.
Martinelli, I think till Mason Greenwood came about, I think he would have probably been up there as the best young player. Best sort of rookie season, except Mason Greenwood, I think.
If he wasn't injured as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the Arsenal team, new signings, everything. Expectations for this season. What would be a good season? Are we talking another FA Cup? Are we talking a League Cup maybe? Or are we talking a top 6 finish, top 4? What is Arsenal Football Club realistically? Because, and I'll just give you my sort of opinion. I told you this off air. I think the worst position Arsenal can finish, I think, is 6th, given the quality that they have. Even if they have an average pedestrian season, I think if they beat the teams that they should be beating, like if you're going to beat Southampton, if you're going to beat Newcastle, for example, then you should comfortably be able to finish 6th.
Definitely.
That's just my opinion. Top 4 might be a little bit difficult because I think Liverpool, City, they're going to be the title challengers. Chelsea might sort of be there, but at this point, Chelsea definitely looks like a 3rd place team at the very least.
Yeah.
And so the only spot you're looking at in the Champions League area is the 4th spot. And United, for all the fun that we make of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, all the bad tactics, the penalties that they get. I mean, in the end, they somehow get that 4th spot, and which is or 3rd spot this year. They finished 3rd this year, which is very. And United, if you look at the squad on paper, they do have the quality to finish in top 4.
Definitely.
So I'm thinking top 6 is realistic. Your thoughts?
For me, I think we'll be playing in the Europa. Yeah. So a good season would be definitely to finish top 4. That should be our expectation this season, to get into Champions League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand that. I think Arsenal as a club, you're kind of used to seeing them in the Champions League. So as a big club, I would say a definitely successful season, even without trophies, would be a top 4.
Top 4, yeah.
But I think a top 6 with an FA Cup would represent progress for me as a club.
Definitely. I wouldn't mind that. That'll be very realistic also. Either, like a Europa League, like being finalists in the Europa League or winning any home trophies. The FA Cup or the League Cup wouldn't be really. It'll be good if even one of those cups. It'll be a good addition.
Yeah.
But even if we didn't win those cups and we finished top 4, it'd be an amazing season for us.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And now, obviously, the season starts tomorrow, technically, for both Liverpool and Arsenal. Community Shield at 4:30 British time. 9 o'clock in India, which is where you are. So I want to ask you this. Do you think it's more important for Liverpool or for Arsenal to win this? Do you think the Community Shield is important, first of all? And
it is complete.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, do you think the Community Shield is important, first of all? Because a lot of people think it's not. It is a trophy, but it's like, it's kind of in the middle of preseason. It's not really a league game. It doesn't quite matter. There's no points at stake. There's no real trophies at stake. It's not a Champions League final or a Europa final or something like that. And, it's essentially a glorified friendly. It's kind of like the club version of the Nations League final, basically. Yep. That's what a lot of people think. I have differing views on that. And I'll explain why, from a Liverpool perspective, I think it is important to win tomorrow. But before that, I want to hear why, if you think the Community Shield is important, and if you think it is, then why do you think it is important for Arsenal to win?
Yeah, like you said, it is definitely a glorified friendly. But given the situation that we are in now, given if it was normally how it was conducted, it would be conducted in between, it would be during preseason or just after preseason.
It would be usually about a week before the first game. So
exactly.
you're talking about 5 weeks of preseason, and then you're going to go into a Community
Then,
Shield.
So, and you will definitely be starting your best team for the game. Yeah. So so that preparation that you have had for 5 weeks, you will get to see a reality of it on the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. For Arsenal players having a new coach, they would want to show that sort of dedication, or what attitudes of theirs that have changed over the last season. They would want to show it such that they'd be picked for the upcoming games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for that matter, I think the Community Shield is a good game, and it's okay. I mean, it's a trophy at the end of the day. It's not like Audi Cup or Emirates Cup, which is like shit. It's like yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you don't see players like celebrating the Community Shield like how Tottenham celebrated the Audi Cup.
Yeah, had to get a shot at Spurs there. But yeah, I can understand why it's important from an Arsenal perspective. I didn't actually think about the fact that this could be important in terms of team selection for the Premier League.
Yeah.
But that is a good point. And for me, I think if I was an Arsenal fan, I would want Arsenal to win this, not just because I'm an Arsenal fan, but because of the fact that first of all, you want to say that you're winning the FA Cup and you're beating Liverpool in the Premier League was not a fluke. Exactly. That there is actual progress there. Like, let's say even if Arsenal lose tomorrow's game, but if they lose on penalties, if it's like 1-1 and then they lose on penalties, and Arsenal didn't get absolutely dominated by Liverpool tomorrow, I think that would be a good sign of progress. Like, yes, Arsenal is not in a position to be competing for the league title at the moment. Maybe in a couple of years, maybe in 3-4 years, yes. But at the moment, you're looking at a top 6 finish, and you're competing against a team who have just won the Premier League and who have won the Champions League the year before. So there is a gulf in quality. So I think if you want to sort of show through your performance that these wins against Liverpool, City and Chelsea were not one-offs.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And from a Liverpool point of view, I think this is important because I think winning breeds further winning. I think once you win that first trophy, and you could see that with the Champions League when we won in 2019. I think that, and obviously losing the Premier League by 1 point to City.
Yeah.
Both of those combined motivated Liverpool last season. And you could see that in the way they played. And I think there was a lot of pressure, which is why I think once Chelsea beat City in that game to give us the title, I think after that, everyone was just drunk pretty much for the rest of the way.
See that,
yeah. So I think there was a lot of pressure on Liverpool at that point to win a title. But the thing is, winning breeds winning, and you kind of want to keep winning just to keep that feel of winning trophies and feeling successful with the club.
Yep.
So I think from a Liverpool point of view, that's why I would say the Community Shield is important. Obviously, rules are a little different. You're allowed 6 substitutes tomorrow. It's just it's just 90 minutes and then penalties. So a lot of people don't consider it to be a real game.
But it'll be a good game to watch. Definitely, you'll get to see how the players are. And besides, it's football. Like, I've definitely missed football.
Yeah, that's true. And it's going to be a weird season. The Community Shield is followed by an international break, which is, I think, as far as I've watched the Premier League, that has never happened. And I'm talking a good at least 15 years here of watching the Premier League. So it's going to be a weird season. There's going to be a lot of games that come one after the other for all the teams who are involved in Europe. Arsenal in the Europa League, Liverpool in the Champions League as well. So, I think predictions for tomorrow, we'll just end it on that note. Predictions for tomorrow. You go first.
It's definitely going to be a 2-0 win for Liverpool. That's
seriously,
very realistic.
I thought you were going to say like some penalty win for Arsenal or something, because
no, let's be realistic. Because if you look at the side, see, I know.
No, the thing is,
David Luiz
Liverpool's not going to
start.
play our best team. Like I would be like Trent is already a doubt for tomorrow. For example,
Okay.
I'm just saying he's getting called up to the England team and all that, but he may not play tomorrow.
Okay.
And I highly doubt all of the front three will play the full 90 minutes.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know. It's just a weird game to
Our
predict.
defense isn't tatters, dude. Like the only person who's fit in our defense is David Luiz and Rob Holding.
Wow. So yeah,
That's our center back.
that's Arsenal's
Probably
backline.
Saliba might start. He might feature.
So William Saliba, yeah. For us, Joel Matip is injured. Henderson's not going to play.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think Virgil will have to play. Virgil and Joe Gomez, they'll have to play.
Huh.
I don't know if Kostas Chimikas will play. I have no idea if he'll play or Robertson will play. Trent is not going to play, so I think we might see our backup right back, which is another youth academy guy called Neko Williams. He might end up starting. Adrian might play instead of Allison, although I can't be sure of that. And as long as Adrian's in goal, Arsenal always have a chance. I hate to say this as a Liverpool fan, but that is true. Basically, gifted Atletico Madrid a win.
I know, but then, dude, you had to give it to them. They did.
No, they played well. It's not like they played badly and didn't deserve the win or something. But Adrian gifted it to them. Like he basically gift wrapped the win and gave it to them. He's like, go through to the quarterfinals, please. But but anyway, I think 2-1 Liverpool. I think Arsenal will score one if Aubameyang plays, especially. And depending on who of the front three play, I think 2-1 Liverpool is kind of a decent prediction to make. But I won't be surprised if Arsenal win or if it goes to penalties, and it kind of go. It can go either way after that. So
either ways, yeah.
But yeah, it's been awesome having you, dude.
Thank you, man. Same.
Yeah, first guest on the podcast. Hopefully, we'll have more of these to come. Anytime you want to talk, just let me know. But yeah, that's been Sean Sarao, and this has been an episode of the Red Mist podcast previewing the Community Shield. So hoping for a good game tomorrow, and I'll see you guys next week. And goodbye.
Goodbye. See you.
See you, man.